Have you driven your car this week? If the answer is yes, there is a very good chance you are already breaking at least one new driving law that quietly took effect in 2026. And here's the scary part. Most drivers have absolutely no idea these changes happened. In fact, one of the new laws on today's list is catching thousands of drivers every single week. Many do not even realize they have been ticketed until a notice shows up in their mailbox days later. The fines are not small either. Some start at $250, others can reach over $1,000, and one of the changes we are covering today could put points on your license without you ever speaking to a police officer. But make sure you stay until number 3, because that is the law causing the biggest wave of surprise tickets across the country right now. Most drivers think they are completely safe when doing it. They are not. As of January 2026, 10 major driving laws changed across the United States. We are talking about laws that affect how you use your phone, where you can park, how fast you can drive in certain zones, what you can hang from your rearview mirror, and how you interact with emergency vehicles and pedestrians. Some of these changes are so specific that even experienced drivers with decades behind the wheel are getting pulled over without knowing they did anything wrong. Let's break down each one, starting with number 1. Most drivers already know texting while driving is illegal. That is old news. But what many people do not realize is that hands-free laws just got significantly stricter in 2026. In 38 states, there is now a complete hands-free policy with primary enforcement. That means officers can pull you over just for touching your phone, not for texting, not for browsing, just for touching it. Think about that for a second. You are sitting at a red light. The car is not moving. You grab your phone for 3 seconds to check who texted you. An officer sees it. That single moment could result in a costly ticket starting at $250 and climbing as high as $1,000 depending on where you live. Here's what catches most people completely off guard. Many drivers believe that voice commands make everything legal. Not necessarily. In many of these states, the phone must be mounted securely in a dashboard holder and operated entirely through voice or steering wheel controls. Holding the phone in your hand while giving voice commands may still violate local regulations. Your lap does not count. Your passenger seat does not count if you are reaching for it. The phone needs to stay completely untouched while the vehicle is in motion or even idling in traffic. This is a massive shift from previous years where secondary enforcement was common. Now it is primary, and police departments are cracking down hard because distracted driving accidents have not declined as much as hoped. If you are still picking up your phone at all, you are taking a serious risk. And compared to what is coming next, this law is actually one of the easier ones to avoid. If you think school zone enforcement only matters during school hours, pay very close attention, because this is one of the biggest and most costly changes happening across the country right now. Traditionally, most drivers assumed school zone cameras only operated when students were arriving or leaving. That assumption is becoming dangerous and expensive. In 2026, 22 states have passed laws allowing those cameras to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That means on weekends, during summer break, on holidays, and late at night, if you speed through a school zone, that camera is watching. And you will find out about it when a ticket arrives in your mailbox 2 weeks later. The reasoning behind this makes sense. School zones are usually located inside residential neighborhoods where children play, walk, and ride bikes long after classes have ended. But for drivers, this creates a completely different reality. Imagine driving home from dinner on a Saturday night. School is out. No children are visible anywhere. The roads are quiet. You glance down and notice you're going 7 miles per hour above the posted limit. No police officer is present. Nothing seems to happen. Then 2 weeks later, a citation arrives in your mailbox. Now imagine making that same mistake multiple times every week because you drive the same route daily. Each ticket costs between $150 and $300. That is potentially $1,500 or more in fines stacking up quietly before you ever realize the rules changed. The camera does not care whether you are familiar with the neighborhood. It simply records the speed and issues the violation. The biggest mistake drivers make is relying on old habits. When laws change, those habits can suddenly become very expensive. And what we are about to discuss next may be the most surprising of all, because thousands of drivers do it every single day while believing they are following the law perfectly. They are not. This is the one most drivers never see coming. You have probably heard the phrase that the left lane is for passing only. Most people nod, agree in theory, and then forget about it completely. But in 2026, enforcement of left-lane driving rules is being ramped up aggressively in 31 states. And it is creating a shockwave of surprise tickets among drivers who genuinely believe they are doing everything right. Here is the situation. Imagine you are on the highway. Traffic is light. The road is clear. You move into the left lane because it is comfortable and convenient. You are driving exactly at the speed limit. You are not speeding. You are not weaving through traffic. You are not driving aggressively. You believe you are being a safe, responsible driver. Then you see flashing lights in your mirror. Many drivers are completely stunned when this happens. Their immediate reaction is the same every time. I was not speeding. How can I be getting pulled over? But speed is not always the issue. In these states, officers are focusing on whether drivers are unnecessarily occupying the passing lane and disrupting the natural flow of traffic. The moment you have passed a slower vehicle, you are legally required to move back to the right lane as soon as it is safe. Cruising in the left lane at the speed limit, even without speeding, can result in a citation between $200 and $500, plus points on your license in many states. Studies show that left lane campers actually cause more accidents by creating frustration and triggering unsafe passing maneuvers by other drivers. Whether you agree with that reasoning or not, enforcement is increasing fast. And cops are targeting this behavior aggressively because it is one of the biggest ticket generators of the year so far. If you have ever been honked at or tailgated in the left lane, this law explains exactly why. The rule is now clear and it is being enforced. Left lane is for passing only. Once you have passed, move over. This one is generating the biggest reaction from drivers across the country, because from their perspective, they are obeying the speed limit and doing nothing wrong. Yet they are still receiving citations. Know this rule and adjust your habits immediately. Quick note here, everything in this video is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not legal advice. Driving laws vary significantly by state, county, and even city. Always check your local DMV website or consult with a qualified traffic attorney for your specific situation. Now let's keep going because the next law affects something millions of drivers do every single day without thinking twice. For decades, drivers across America have treated right turns on red as completely routine. You stop, you check for traffic, you turn. Simple. But that long-standing habit is changing fast in major cities, and it is creating serious confusion for drivers who have followed the same routine for years. Over 40 major cities have now implemented restrictions or outright bans on right turns on red in downtown areas and high pedestrian zones. Places like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Seattle, and Boston are leading this push. The reason is pedestrian safety. Studies show that a shocking percentage of pedestrian accidents happen when drivers focus on vehicle traffic during a right turn and completely miss someone crossing the street. Here is the problem. Many drivers are operating on old assumptions. They approach an intersection and automatically prepare to turn because that is what they have always done. Then a camera records the violation, or an officer observes the maneuver, and suddenly what felt like a routine turn becomes a fine starting at $100 and climbing as high as $400. What makes this especially challenging is that rules can vary dramatically from one city block to the next. A turn that is perfectly legal in one location may be prohibited just a few miles away. Most cities are posting signage at entry points to restricted zones, but the rollout has been inconsistent. Some intersections have clear signs, others do not. Your safest approach today is to assume that in any busy downtown area, near schools, hospitals, or high-traffic tourist spots, right turns on red are restricted unless you see a sign explicitly permitting it. The days of assuming every right turn on red is legal are fading quickly. Now here is a law that feels almost unbelievable when you first hear it. But it is real and it is catching drivers who have never even considered this could be an offense. Picture a cold winter morning. You start your car. You leave it running while you finish your coffee. Maybe you give the engine 10 or 15 minutes to warm up before you head out. It is something drivers have done for decades. It seems completely harmless. Not anymore. In 2026, 15 states have introduced strict enforcement of anti-idling regulations. These laws limit how long you can leave your vehicle running while parked or stationary in a residential area. The limit is usually just 3 to 5 minutes. After that, if a neighbor complains or a police officer drives by, you can be fined anywhere from $50 to $250. The goal is reducing emissions and cutting unnecessary fuel consumption. Supporters argue that modern engines do not require lengthy warm-up periods the way older vehicles once did. Critics say the rules are impractical in cold weather. Regardless, these regulations exist and many drivers have never heard of them. What surprises people most is that enforcement is often complaint-driven. Officers are not necessarily patrolling neighborhoods looking for idling vehicles, but one frustrated neighbor is all it takes, and once enforcement begins, fines can stack up quickly. If you are in the habit of warming up your car for 10 or 15 minutes every winter morning, this is a law you want to know about before it costs you. The most expensive tickets are always the ones people never expect. Dash cameras have exploded in popularity for good reason. They provide evidence after accidents. They protect against false insurance claims. They help document incidents on the road. Most drivers assume that installing one automatically makes them safer and smarter. But here is what millions of drivers do not know. 7 states have now rolled out specific regulations about exactly where and how a dash cam can be mounted on your windshield. The concern is not the device itself. The concern is that a poorly positioned camera can obstruct your field of view and create a new safety hazard. In these states, your dash cam must be mounted in a specific approved zone, usually directly behind the rearview mirror and not extending more than a couple of inches down the windshield. Too low, too far to the side, or mounted on the dashboard itself, and you can be ticketed for an obstructed view violation. Fines range from $75 to $200. Imagine purchasing a brand new dash cam, installing it yourself, months going by with no issues, and then getting stopped for a routine traffic matter only to discover the officer wants to discuss your camera placement. That is exactly what is happening to drivers right now. They were trying to improve their safety. They ended up breaking a law they never knew existed. Before mounting any device on your windshield, take 2 minutes to check your state's specific guidelines. Many manufacturers now include legal mounting charts with their products. Use them. You already know the basic move-over law. When you see flashing lights from a police car, ambulance, or fire truck on the side of the road, you move over or slow down. That is not new. But in 2026, 33 states have significantly expanded this rule to cover a much broader range of roadside situations. Today, move-over requirements apply to tow trucks, roadside assistance vehicles, maintenance crews, construction workers, and even regular civilian vehicles stopped on the shoulder with their hazard lights flashing. If you pass any of these at speed without moving over or slowing down substantially, you can be pulled over and fined. Penalties typically start at $150 and can climb above $500. Some states are adding points for repeat violations. Here is a scenario that is playing out on highways every day. A tow truck is assisting a disabled vehicle on the shoulder. You continue in your lane without slowing. A state trooper witnesses it. A traffic stop follows. The driver is shocked because they only associated move-over laws with police cars and ambulances. That assumption is now outdated and expensive. The safest approach is simple. The moment you see flashing lights or any roadside activity ahead, check your mirrors, signal, and move over if it is safe to do so. If changing lanes is not possible because of traffic, slow down significantly and proceed with caution. That one simple adjustment could prevent a tragedy and save you from a serious citation. Now we come to the 2 most controversial and far-reaching changes on this entire list. One of them could affect how much you pay for the exact same violation, depending on how much money you make. The other is changing how every driver needs to think about intersections. Most drivers know pedestrians have rights at crosswalks. That is not new. What is changing dramatically is how aggressively those rights are being enforced. In 28 states starting in 2026, pedestrians have absolute right-of-way in all marked and unmarked crosswalks. Zero tolerance. Here is what that means for you in practical terms. If a pedestrian is anywhere near a crosswalk, even if they are just standing on the curb looking like they might be about to step out, you are legally required to stop completely and wait. No inching forward, no slowly rolling through while making eye contact, no waving them through impatiently. A full and complete stop is required until they have safely crossed. If an officer sees you fail to yield, or a camera captures it, you are looking at a fine starting at $300 that can climb significantly higher. In many states, this violation also adds points to your license and may require mandatory traffic school. This law was passed because crosswalk accidents involving elderly people and children have been rising sharply in urban and suburban areas. The responsibility is now entirely on the driver. You cannot assume the pedestrian will wait for you. You cannot assume they saw you. The safest and now legally required approach is to always stop and yield, without exception. Many experienced drivers are discovering that behaviors they have practiced for years are no longer viewed the same way. And because pedestrian-related violations carry significant penalties, this is one change that nobody can afford to ignore. And finally, the most talked about and debated traffic law change of 2026. In 6 states, including California, Oregon, Washington, New York, Illinois, and Vermont, traffic violation fines are now calculated based on your income. Here's how it works. If you earn around $30,000 a year, a typical speeding ticket might cost you $150. But if you earn $300,000 or more, that same violation could cost $1,500 or even higher. The fine is adjusted using your most recent tax return information. The idea was borrowed from systems used in several European countries, and it is based on a straightforward argument. A flat fine affects people very differently depending on their financial situation. A $200 ticket can create serious hardship for someone living paycheck to paycheck, but is barely noticeable to someone with a high salary. Supporters say this makes the system more equitable and ensures the penalty carries equal weight regardless of income. Critics argue it is fundamentally unfair, invades financial privacy, and turns traffic enforcement into a wealth-based penalty system. Regardless of where you stand on that debate, if you live in one of these 6 states, this system is already in effect. When you receive a ticket, the court adjusts the amount based on your income data. It is generating fierce discussions in state legislatures, so expect possible changes in the months ahead. So there you have it. 10 major driving law changes that took effect in 2026 that most drivers still have no idea about. From stricter hands-free enforcement and all-year school zone cameras to the left lane crackdown that is catching thousands of experienced drivers completely off guard, these updates are being enforced right now. And if there is one single law generating the biggest wave of surprise tickets, it is still number 3. So many drivers who have been behind the wheel for 20 or 30 years are getting pulled over for something they believed was perfectly fine. The fines, the license points, and the insurance rate hikes that follow are no small matter. Here's your action step. Take 5 minutes today to look up your state's specific rules on these 10 issues. Not next week, not next month. Today. Most state DMV websites have clear, plain English summaries of the 2026 law updates. Knowledge is your best and only defense against surprise tickets, unexpected points on your license, and insurance costs that quietly climb for years afterward. The drivers who stay informed are the ones who stay protected. The drivers who rely on old habits are the ones who learn about these changes the hard way, from a flashing light in their mirror or an envelope in their mailbox. Drive safely, stay alert, and never assume the rules are the same as they were even 1 year ago, because sometimes a small change in the law leads to a very expensive mistake.